right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again with another breakdown of a tweet. But this time, it's going to be a different creator. It is not going to be Mr. Pokey. And I know that I've been a little bit on his case over the past couple of weeks for a lot of the crazy takes that he's been making on Twitter. But guess what, guys? I do believe that the war is in fact over. The war between Mr. Pokey and, obviously, a bunch of gacha game communities. He's sworn off of doing gacha revenue. He has personally sworn off of doing gacha revenue, you know, doing these things that fuel gacha tribalism, and he's embarking on another adventure himself. He's playing League of Legends 07. Let's pour one out for the boy. He's fighting his own battles now, on Summoner's Rift. The topic that we're going to be focusing, or really the creator that we're going to be focusing on today, will be Gacha Smack, because I actually really like the take that he's putting out here. And this take is about one of the previous tweets that he's made, about how he's basically glazing the implementation of minigames in Zenless Zone Zero. Things like their Vampire Survivors game mode, their Fall Guys, their racing, and he's basically just saying, hey, they've blown out every other game in the space by miles. He had a bunch of fun on stream yesterday with chat playing Fall Guys. It was insane. And so we have some cautionary responses. Mr. Pokey over here saying, watch out. Red News just trying to farm even more on the whole ZZZ versus Wuwa thing. Blessed be him. Good luck with that one. And you're gonna see over here, right? Every single response to this is a joke or just agreeing with him. This is a hard opinion to disagree with because let's be honest, the mini games in Genshin Impact actively suck, and Wuthering Waves doesn't really have mini games in the first place. So there's not really much to disagree with here in the first place. He's talking about something that's pretty cut and paste, that's pretty obvious for a lot of people, and it's not really like a controversial opinion because this is like saying an ocean has more water than a desert. This is like saying an ocean has higher moisture content than a desert. And even if that's just his opinion, that's also the opinion that's going to be shared by a lot of people. There's not really anybody being aggro at all in the comments, and if they are, they're just aggro as a joke. And Gacha Smack has recognized that, and he's decided to share his take on it. Let's go ahead and read it out a little bit and share some of our own thoughts on the matter, especially because, you know, some could consider us one of the biggest glazers in the space, right? There's a reason why I've been called the #1 Kurobot. This tweet is proof that so long as you don't aggro or single out a community, they take no issue with sharing opinions or praise about a game in opposition to theirs. True. Just make sure that your praise, right, or your opinions are factual, based in reality, and make a ton of sense. There's one guy who found a way to be offended, but the vast majority are supportive or impassive because really there's nothing to argue against, right? There's nothing to care about. Another facet is my history of opinions on all gacha games. I'd argue my rapport on giving opinions has been built up over time to be closer to fair and unbiased to the majority that are aware of me. I would say this is pretty true, right? Gacha Smack has a history of critiquing pretty much every single game in the space with what he finds to be warranted. He also has a history, right, of praising or glazing games in the space when he believes that they deserve them. I've had a little bit of run-ins with him in the past about stuff where I was like, I don't really know how I feel about this, right? And then he actually, you know, kind of went ahead and he also said, yeah, this was a bit of like a bad take on my end, right? He said it was like slop content on his end. So it's like a little bit of like back and forth. I think he is pretty firm in what he's saying over here, and I think a lot of people can believe what he's saying. An opinion on games over time really matters in the long run for a CC's credibility because people are going to view you based off of your past opinions, given having biases, objectivity, and fairness. Example, if I have a history of glazing Wuwa with zero scrutiny, and then I give a negative opinion about ZZZ, that's going to tell the ZZZ community my opinion is severely compromised and full of vitriol. A lot of people, given my history, right, of talking great about Wuthering Waves and talking about the things that I enjoy with the game, they might be under the impression, right, that all I do is talk good about the game, that I never criticize it, and there hasn't been a single video in my track record, my history, that has ever criticized the game. People think that I am the person being listed out over here, and this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Am I? The worst 5-star pull in Wuwa history. The worst event in Wuthering Waves history. The worst Tower of Adversity reset in Wuthering Waves history. Tacit fields need a buff. Why we hate Wuthering Waves. Wuwa's story quests have some issues. And don't worry. There are more. There are more videos across these where I heavily critique the game. There are more videos across these where I heavily critique the game. But this is the thing, right? A lot of members of the community are not particularly intelligent people. And they go by this thing called recency bias, where they view my content, or they view a creator's content, right, based off the fact that they're talking about the game positively in the present, and they'll go ahead and apply that positivity in the present to all of their past content, regardless of what they've actually uploaded. That's where this whole impression of, oh my gosh, all Saint has done is talk shit about Mr. Pokey for the past couple of weeks, when I think I have 3 videos out of maybe 20 that are about him in the past couple of weeks. That's why people say that all I do is glaze Wuthering waves, when quite literally, I've pulled up multiple examples. We can look at the dates over here. These are all within the past month, or the past 2 months of me criticizing the game. And they'll go ahead and they'll apply that image forward. And this is the thing, right? People stop talking. People stop having that impression once you start providing the receipts of all of this. And that's where the problem occurs. Some individuals in the community, they cannot read, but once you're able to provide this sort of like factual evidence of the non-biased takes that you've had in the past, that's when you're able to start moving forward and actually have more credibility as a CC. And this is kind of like the issue, right? When we're doing stuff like Genshin Impact content, when we're doing stuff like Honkai Star Rail content, and all we're doing is talking good about those games, and we're never talking about the predatory banner system of Genshin Impact. We're not talking bad about how awful the dual, double new banners were in Genshin 5.3. And we're not talking, right, about how awful power creep is or the player base in general. And we're making takes, right, that are corporate friendly and supporting power creep in a sense and talking about how it's not that big of a problem. That's where that credibility starts crumbling. When we're actively supporting decisions that are viewed as negative by a majority of the player base, or we're not actively talking about them. That's where the troubles occur. There's a reason why I made this video talking about how the Tower of Adversity reset. You can see it in the fucking thumbnail. How their shift from a 30% general attribute damage bonus to a more selective buff and a debuff for certain characters was inherently predatory. That's why I made this video, because I wanted to call it out as predatory and potentially limiting for the player base and potentially making the game worse. But you don't really see creators, right, who are that deep on Hoyo or that deep on those games, because they might have things, right, like early access. They might have things like a business interest in not making those takes. That's when the credibility starts crumbling down. And so that leads us into the next point, right? This is especially true when a game is in a sorry state, like HSR 3.0, and the scrutiny is absent from the CC that covers it, or vice versa. The praise is absent despite the game delivering a commendable update. This is the thing, guys. Did I say bad things about ZZZ 1.4? I've actually praised ZZZ 1.4 in several of my videos and several of my streams for how much better it's made the game. I literally have a video about how ZZZ and Wuwa ruined gacha gaming by delivering such great updates. And this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. I give credit where credit is due. And when you see somebody that isn't full-on glazing Wuthering Waves 2.0, let's be honest, it does seem a little bit disingenuous sometimes. You see a reviewer or even a creator saying that 2.0 isn't amazing, when it is pretty objectively, by a lot of measures, one of the most comprehensive updates a game has ever had and one of the most satisfying updates a game has ever had. That's when, ladies and gentlemen, the mask starts falling off a little bit. You need to say when a game is good if you want to be taken as credible and objective. And if a game has an amazing update and you don't say it's an amazing update despite playing it, people are just going to be like, well, why are you thinking like that? Is there like some ulterior motive to the take that you're making? Is there something influencing you to make a claim like this? And that's when those questions start occurring. But when a game is good, like ZZZ 1.4, I'll talk about why it's good. I've had duels in my Twitch chat because of people hating the fact that I was simply playing ZZZ or commenting on it and saying that it's trash regardless. But that's the thing. That's where a creator has to fight for their credibility to a degree, where they have to go against what members of their community might want them to say or influencing them to say, because they want to stay genuine. And that's where the struggle is for a lot of these CCs, because you've built up this community, right, by acting in a certain way. This community influences how you perceive and react to things, because in general, if you don't do what your community wants, there is a chance that they're going to leave. And for a content creator, your community is what directly translates into your success. And so oftentimes, right, it can seem like it's in your best interest to do something or say something that you might not necessarily believe just so that you can guarantee more of that success. But there's a long-term impact to not being genuine. And I think this is where Gacha Smack is really diving into it here. And this is where I resonate a lot with it. He says the community is more astute of your entire track record than you may realize. This is because they're supportive as much as they're critical. And I think that is very true. People actually have, some people might be very stupid, but other people, the more legitimate people, right? The smart people in the community, they have a good memory. And so always keep it a stack in good faith. And I think that is a really, really great take. I'm going to be honest. I don't even think that this is really a take for the general audience. I don't think that this is a take for like the overall gacha community. I genuinely do feel like that this is a take for other CCs. And I fully agree with it. As long as you're genuine, as long as you're honest, as long as you're willing, right, to have a bit of a tussle, to fight with your community occasionally, right, you are doing the cleanup. You are making sure that you're in an environment where you can actually speak your mind and say the truth and not feel a fear that you're going to lose something for doing that. And that lets you be the most genuine self that you can possibly be across your content. And that's going to lead to your community because the community reflects the streamer, right? That leads to the most genuine community possible. That lets you do or say whatever is on your mind and they won't throw a hissy fit about it. One example of a creator, right, where I think they have built up a genuine community is none other than Tectone himself. I think this is a creator that's been able to build up a genuine community that allows them to speak their mind, that sometimes fosters disagreements, but they're able to handle and get through it. I think that this is an example of somebody, right, that has a track record of shitting on games when necessary, but then also praising games when necessary as well. And while you might not agree with every single opinion that he has, you're not going to go ahead, right, and claim that he's disingenuous about the takes that he's making. And unfortunately, that is something, right, that can happen when you push for a game too hard or you refuse to acknowledge when a competitor or simply another game overall is doing well too. So with that, hopefully that's given you all a little bit more context. And I think that, again, this is a great tweet by Gacha Smack. Peace out. Let me know what you all think.